There's nothing wrong with a healthy rivalry. Having someone trying to outdo you keeps you trying your best and motivates you into top form. DC and Marvel are always the first names you think of when it comes to comic books, and though nowadays it seems more like animosity than a rivalry, they did used to be in a more friendly competition. They even used to be able to get along well enough to play together, with DC's time-honoured heroes teaming up with Marvel's new age of adventurers. And today, we're reading about the first meeting between two of the world's greatest superheroes. Superman, the last son of Krypton, who uses his own near-omnipotent powers to serve mankind. And Spider-Man, the misunderstood outlaw whose great power comes with a great responsibility to those in need. This is Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man, the battle of the century. The book begins with words from the editors. We've got Stan Lee, who we all know by now, and Carmine Infantino, whose genius we are familiar with on this channel from his work with Barry Allen's Flash. Stan does his usual routine of chucking every exciting synonym he can think of to hype up the book we've already bought. But to be fair, he does give credit to other people who made the book happen instead of taking all the credit for himself. Bet Jack Kirby was fuming at that one. Carmine focuses more to the point and dedicates this momentous occasion to the people who started the whole superhero thing, and to everyone who's ever taken part. And the greatest superhero team-up of all time begins right now. The city of Metropolis is under attack. A giant humanoid robot tearing the city apart, but this thing isn't the only man of steel in Metropolis. Here comes Superman to save the day. But whoever devised this deadly device planned for Superman's interference, blasting him away with an energy beam for just long enough to swipe a computer device from Star Labs and to begin to make its escape. But Superman doesn't give up easily. He realizes that such a huge robot must need a gravity device to function, or it would be crushed under its own weight. Superman beats the bot by pushing it down deep into the ground, trapping it with its own heaviness. But as Superman's distracted by the head shooting into the sky, the robot's pilot, Lex Luthor, escapes. Superman changes into his alter ego of Clark Kent and returns to work at Galaxy Communications where, as his boss, Mr. Edge, warns the crew of the upcoming trip to New York. Footage of the robot gives Clark an idea. Superman follows the robot's trail backwards and finds his foe, Luthor, in a hidden underwater base. And it turns out Superman tracking him down was all part of his master plan, that fiend. Lex unleashes his newest trap on the Man of Steel, a net of supercharged laser beams that'll cut Kal-El to ribbons. But super speed and a genius brain help Superman escape with only one fault: a blinding beam blast to his eye, courtesy of Lex. Luthor makes good use of Superman's momentary blindness to hide his stolen Star Labs circuitry, planning to retrieve it later when he escapes. He also seizes the opportunity to do more damage, peppering Superman with more blasts. But Lex's hopes of victory are washed away when heat vision melts the walls of the submersible, flooding his lab and leading to an easy capture. Luthor gets apprehended, and Clark Kent feels Metropolis is safe enough to leave alone for a while, as he and his co-workers at Galaxy Communications board a flight for New York City. And you know who lives there, don't you? Well, almost every Marvel character ever. But you know who I'm talking about, mate. You've seen the cover. You've read the title. It's time for our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Happen upon a museum heist, Spidey swings into action. Side note, Norman Mailer was apparently an author and a pioneer of mixing journalism with the style of a fiction writer, kinda like sensationalism. References like this always date the books badly, I reckon. Is there not a Marvel or DC character they could have mentioned instead of a real life fella? He could have said Lois Lane, she's famous in universe. Or Ned Leeds, Peter knows him personally. Spider-Man quickly discovers that the mastermind behind this museum robbery is none other than his old armoured adversary, Dr. Octopus. Doc Ock and his newest invention, a squid-shaped flying battleship, managed to drop Spider-Man long enough to escape with their ill-gotten gains. And later on, in his civilian identity of Peter Parker, Spidey laments to his friend Mary Jane that all he seems to do lately is make mistakes. He's double talking about how he's lost to Doc Ock, but MJ doesn't realise that because she doesn't know his secret identity. Well, she does, but he doesn't know she knows. At this point, apparently she knew since, the night Uncle Ben died. She saw Spider-Man crawling out of Peter Parker's window. But Peter doesn't know that she knows. So anyway, Peter's quickly given a chance to rectify his mistake when his spider sense triggers. Danger flies overhead in the form of a blimp. Very threatening. Running out on Mary Jane, the mask comes back on. And upon further inspection, the spider sense was right on the money, as that dirigible was disguising Doc Ock's deadly device. And look at that, he slipped a spider tracer on the Doc before he escaped last time. That crafty Spidey's made an absolute fool of Dr. Octopus, and he's not done yet. The Doc's been taken by surprise, and he doesn't have a plan for this fight. So Spidey dominates the Doc as the airborne Octobot splashes into Central Park Reservoir. Thanks to Spider-Man, the often unsung hero, New York can sleep a little safer with the mad mind of Dr. Octopus back behind bars. But Ock isn't alone in prison. His new cellmate, Lex Luthor, joins the master planner in incarceration. Two of the greatest criminal minds the world has ever seen meet at last. And the two become fast friends, bonding over the shared hatred for superheroes. They even make a deal to give each other a hand in world domination, should they ever again see the outside world. But with the combined crimes of these two mad scientists, that's not likely to ever happen. Or is it? There's a reason it takes Earth's most powerful hero to handle Luthor. He's hidden within a false layer of skin, everything he needs to break out. And coincidentally, he's also brought a gadget that'll power up Otto's terrible tentacles too. How fortunate. Get ready for the best page I've ever seen. You'll never be able to look at Dr. Octopus the same way ever again after this. He's playing horsey with Lex Luthor, for Christ's sake. What a pair of absolute lunatics. This is what we're missing out on nowadays. So our two dastardly villains have teamed up, and with the combined brainpower of these two, the whole world is in trouble. We need a hero. Or two. And we find our champions in their civilian personas, both currently in New York City for the World News Conference. I think it's like a big fair for news organisations. And what on earth is Peter wearing? Mate, what is that jumper? Anyway, it's a big showcase of all the cool things about the world of reporting. Like this. ComLab 1. One part satellite laboratory, one part military weapon. Exciting stuff. For Clark anyway, Lois Lane doesn't really care. Lois goes off to snap some photos of the expo, climbing up a scaffold for the bird's eye view and nearly falling off. Fortunately for her, she wasn't the only one with the idea, as good old Peter Parker grabs her just in time. And I like this, Peter and Lois actually recognise each other. Look at the fun interactions we're missing out on because Marvel and DC don't want to be friends anymore. What is Mary Jane's problem here, man? When was this released? 1976. Gwen was dead, but he wasn't fully with Mary Jane yet either. Oh, hey Superman. Superman? What are you doing? You've killed Mary Jane and Lois? Jesus. Peter's face here is a perfect blend of rage and confusion. Superman, the world's most powerful, most famous superhero, has just flew down out of nowhere and blasted his lady. How would you react? Grab your mask, mate, it's showtime. Spidey thinks Superman blasted the girls, but Superman's hostile only because he's heard of Spidey's reputation, so Clark Kent reads the Daily Bugle, I suppose. But honestly, it wouldn't be a superhero team-up if they didn't fight first. All according to plan. Luthor and Octopus have set this whole thing up to have their enemies take each other out. Nefarious. Now, Spider-Man is my favourite fictional character of all time, but this is Superman we're fighting here. Ironically, Luthor must be a Marvel guy too because he wants Spider-Man to win, and he blasts Peter with a red sun radiation ray, giving Pete some extra punch, enough to send Superman spinning. Oh no, he looks mad. There's a reason Superman's #1 in the hero game. His punch doesn't even need to connect to send Spidey flying. I'm glad both the heroes got a good dig in, there's no favouritism. Though I did think Spidey's shot was the better page, more dynamic, and it had them both. I can barely see Superman in his one. Spider-Man is famous for beating impossible odds, lifting up the Master Planner's crumbling base, defeating Firelord, Herald of Galactus, one-on-one, stopping the Juggernaut. But this is not one of those times. Fantastic sequence here. I do love Superman's hands on his hips, like he's patiently waiting for Peter to realise it's not really working. We're lucky that Superman's brain is just as good as his brawn. He knows something isn't right here, and he's willing to shake hands and make up with Spider-Man. The two heroes are united at last as they try and find out what the hell is even going on. Following the energy signature of that super imposter that blasted Lois and MJ, our heroes close in on their enemies. Aren't these web skis a bit of a waste of web fluid? Superman could have just pulled Spidey along normally, couldn't he? That stuff doesn't grow on trees, you know. Our heroes storm in and confront the masterminds. Dr. Octopus and Lex Luthor reveal the reason they kidnapped MJ and Lois was all to bait the heroes into this distraction. The villains vanish, leaving Superman and Spider-Man clueless to their evil intentions. But Otto and Luthor aren't the only big brains in town. The heroes rebuild Luthor's booby-trapped computer, and they find some coordinates vital to the bad guy's plot. Coordinates pointing them directly to Mount Kilimanjaro. But after a brief interaction with the locals, Spidey and Superman only uncover an empty missile silo. They were too late. The villains are still light years ahead of the heroes. Literally too, as Lex and Otto, alongside the kidnapped Lois and Mary Jane, have taken refuge in the stars, the orbit and base of the Injustice Gang. And now, we finally discover exactly what this devious duo have planned when Luthor lets Doc Ock in on his scheme. Using the device he and his giant robot stole from Star Labs, Luthor has hacked into ComLab, the military mega satellite, and he's unleashing its arsenal upon the unsuspecting population, letting loose a continuous blast from a deadly laser cannon, the energy from which is altering the very atmosphere into a deadly, world-threatening superstorm. Things aren't looking good as the villain's cannon holds the world for ransom, and even though our heroes reach for the stars to stop him, even they can't handle ComLab's defences. Brought upon the Injustice satellite, hang on a minute mate, why? Why wouldn't they just let Spider-Man die in that shuttle? They've rescued Spider-Man here. He was gonna suffocate. Doc Ock was okay with them rescuing Spider-Man. Anyway, the heroes reawaken on the satellite. Not even tied up, come on fellas. Lex and Otto deserve this ass kicking. Well, this is just funny now. Weightless in space, the world's two greatest heroes and its two most devious villains just kind of flail around at each other. The most damage that gets done is Dr. Octopus's spectacles get broken. The true threat's back on Earth as the superstorm summons a tsunami. Spider-Man must stand against the villains alone as Superman goes to save the day. Can even our spider-powered saviour stand against these two mad geniuses alone? He doesn't have to, because the Master Planner balks at Luthor's endgame of planetary destruction. That's Otto's home too, after all, and one metallic tentacle takedown later, the deadly device is destroyed, but the threat is still ongoing for Superman. The tsunami threatens to obliterate America, unless Superman can save the day. He summons all his remaining strength and booms across the sound barrier, going so fast he creates a wall of sheer sound that blocks and dissipates the wave water. With the villains captured, the women freed, and Superman and Spider-Man going their separate ways with a cool handshake like in Predator, one of the greatest adventures the world has ever seen, comes to a happy ending. These cross-company collaborations are of special interest to me because in my lifetime, there's a less than 0% chance of this ever happening again unless Disney buys DC. The big two hardly bother with each other anymore aside from writers taking cringy pot shots at each other, and rather lax parody laws mean companies can just make their own homage to other company characters if they want them in a story, like what Deadpool started out with to Deathstroke, Hyperion is to Superman, and for a newer example, Sideways to Spider-Man. I can tell care was taken with this. No hero outshines the other, every punch landed was returned, and both heroes got the same screen time and equal cool moments. Lex and Otto were a fun team. Both being mad scientists, and the scheme matched both the MOs. Doc Ock would later hatch a similar plot to this in Ends of the Earth with the satellite death ray stuff. The mentions of the Injustice Gang make me wonder what Marvel villains had joined the Legion of Doom. Maybe the leader or Baron Zemo. Dr. Doom wouldn't be too happy about the name though, would he? I really liked the world building in this, like how Lois and Peter had heard of each other before because they're both in the news business. Think of all the possibilities of a shared Marvel DC universe. LexCorp making Sentinels, Green Lantern Daredevil, Sinister Six versus the Rogues, it'd be sick. My only note on the story is that firstly, the segment with the tribe at Kilimanjaro wasn't needed, that's why I skipped over it. And also the bit where Otto and Lex save Spider-Man from dying in space, it makes no sense unless they just wanted to gloat. Overall though, fantastic story, and I love seeing the two of the best heroes ever teaming up and both being treated with respect.